Hi Antonio, hi Alessandra, hi Aurora. Thank you for being here, Antonio.
Hi, Eric.
It's like really a pleasure to have you here in our office, just like on the other room. Um,
Yeah, thank you for having
so-
me.
Absolutely. Like I think that we met like playing tennis. That is like the serendipity of San Francisco, right? That you just like I was playing tennis with my brother. We were like also waiting for like your tennis court, and I think it's one of like the very cool thing about Silicon Valley and like San Francisco, is like the serendipity that you can meet a lot of interesting people. Just maybe going for a run, playing tennis, going to a restaurant. So that's very cool and it's possible because of like the density of like all the people that are staying here. And then yeah, and also like this week, it was like very nice to visit you at Uber, where you're actually working at. So it was very cool. And it was also interesting to know that your previous office is like the OpenAI office right now, right? Because it's just and the next in front of like your current office. So that's very cool. Like maybe we can start a little bit like talking about like your background, right? So how you started and how did you arrive here?
Yes, also because you started from you started studying also finance, and so also we were interested about also about your passions, how you developed that passion, and what brought you now from Italy to San Francisco. So yes, give us a little bit overview of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I start from way back in high school, and I try to go fast. But if you have any questions that you want to kind of like double click on, let me know. So when I was in high school, I am originally from Catania in Sicily, and so I studied in the scientific high school, and was never really very much into studying. I was not like a great student. So when it came to deciding what college to go to, I didn't really have a clear idea in mind. I was not very well prepared, and I also didn't have many mentors or examples in my family or circle of friends of people who went to college. So randomly, my mom signed me up to this test to kind of go study at Lewis, this admission test, and I passed, and that's how I got to go to Rome. I have a twin sister. She was also gonna go to Rome at the same time, so we kind of moved together. And so my journey at Rome started studying at Lewis. I studied in this program called Economics and Business, which is very, I would say, high level introduction to economics, management, and business. And then from there, I think that's one of the first pivotal moment in my life, because I met a lot of really smart and talented people in that program, and some of them I really still close friends with, and they really helped change my life because they, first of all, they taught me how to study. They told me a lot about like opportunities or like where to go next, and stuff like that. So from there, then I went to Bocconi. I got a scholarship, and then my life kind of went from there.
And in fact, yeah, about the scholarship, how did you, how were which were the parameters of that scholarship, and um, did it influence also your experience there at Bocconi, given that maybe you had some standards that you had to maintain in order to have the scholarship? And if you also decided to do some working experiences, how did you balance studying in such a competitive environment and at the same time working?
Yeah, so to get a scholarship, it was pretty simple. Meaning there were only a couple of not simple to get it, but like there were only a couple of criteria. So one, you had to have a pretty high GPA. I don't remember exactly what, but it had to be high. And luckily I had a pretty good GPA at Lewis, so I was good with that. And then the second one was the GMAT. So I took the GMAT exam and I scored pretty well. So that helped me. I think that was really the main thing that helped me get the scholarship. I didn't have a lot of extracurricular activities. Like, here in the US, that's really big, like volunteering, debate, sports, stuff like that. I didn't have any of that. But luckily in Italy, at least at that time, it was not big yet. So the main thing was just like curricular activities, like I said. And then once I got to Bocconi, in order to keep the scholarship for the second year of my master's, I had to keep a GPA of at least like 27 out of 30. And so that's how I kept it. Yeah,
And
that
then,
was
like,
it.
while you were studying, you also did maybe some internship, or that, like, you decided to finish your studies and then to start working.
Yeah, that's one thing that going back to when I said I always felt kind of like unprepared, didn't have good mentors and stuff like that. So that I think I was always late when it came to like internships. I was always kind of like behind the curve. Uh, at Lewis, I only did one very short internship during my last year, which was not really valuable. It was just like to check the box and say like I did the internship.
Was something that, like, you found it alone, or with Louis, like they told you that there is that was that opportunity?
No, I found it through my dad who had like a connection in this company.
Okay.
But it was honestly not at all related to what I was studying or to my interest. So it was just mainly to check the box and say I
An
did this.
experience, let's say.
Yeah. And then when I got to Bocconi, my program at Bocconi was a master's in finance, which is highly competitive. The people that go there, for the most part, want to go into investment banking. And they come to that program already very well prepared in terms of like what they need to do to get to investment banking. I was not prepared at all. So I got there, I didn't know anything about like applications for summer internships and stuff like that. So I was a little bit behind. But yeah, I think as soon as you get to that program, you need to start applying for the next summer. And it's really, really competitive. So it's good to go there with already knowing what to expect.
Yeah, so like the experience, your first working experience at Life Science Consultants, was that your first choice, or was like the opportunity that maybe you first encountered and you took it in order to take, like, to have some experiences as a starting point? Or like,
Yeah.
did you have a dream where you wanted to go and that was house passage, to go there?
So that internship, it was like again at Bocconi, similar to Luis, you need to do an internship to in order to graduate. It's mandatory. But in this case, it's more like a real internship. It can be like 3 months, 6 months, but it needs to be like real work. So my top priority, my top kind of choice would have been investment banking. But as I started kind of late in the recruitment process, I didn't manage to secure any summer internship. And so I kept recruiting throughout the year. And then there is this thing called off-cycle internships that many firms offer, especially like smaller banks or consulting firms. So I got this consulting internship at this small boutique firm in Milan. It was not really something I was passionate about. I didn't know much about life sciences, but I thought it's consulting, so I may learn a lot about like basic skills. The pay was decent for an internship, so I said okay. Also, I didn't have any other offers, so I said okay, let's do
You
this.
did it. But then you went to HSBC, like, which is a really important company. How about what made you entering there? Was that your previous experience important in your accession process to this other company, or tell us about how you
Yeah.
went there?
So I think given it was, I started HSBC still as an intern, so they didn't really require a ton of work experience, a ton of like prior work experience. I think what helped me in that case, I recall the in the interview, And well, first of all, coming from Bocconi is still very much appreciated, especially in Italy and Europe in general. And then second, I remember they were impressed by my GMAT score, so that got my foot in the door to get the interview. And then the interview, I didn't do great, but I think I was very nervous. I remember. I did fine, and I started this internship, which initially was only supposed to be kind of like more back office support, so not really into the trading. And then luckily, after a couple of weeks, I was in this internship. A position opened up to join the actual trading team. So I got a little bit lucky. So I joined that team and I spent there almost 2 years.
Ah, okay, so like from an internship, you started working there, so they gave to you the opportunity to work there.
Yes. And the internship really only lasted less than a month, I think.
And have you developed there your passion for anything? Because after that, you went to Amazon and you did like you worked for in the business development field. So like, how was the link between the sales and trading and the business development? And if you could also compare like the two, and like also saying what you preferred and what was key also for your future experiences. And yes. I think that we lost connection.
Yeah, I lost you for a second.
Okay, also us. Now can you hear us? No.
Okay, for me it's still working. I don't know, maybe it's lagging a little bit.
Yeah, for me also.
I can
You
hear
can
you now.
hear Antonio?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Like, and so we were asking you about your experience at Amazon and how you transitioned from banking to working in the business development.
Yeah, so as you can see, my background is not very linear. I did a few of these transitions that don't really they're not really following the path that I already did. So I went from banking, HSBC, where I was doing like trading, into Amazon, which was a completely different role, more like into business development, vendor management. The reason why I did that switch was after working at HSBC for almost 2 years, I wanted to try something different. I was not sure that trading was my passion, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do it for my career. Just to give you a very high level overview of what the sales and trading role entails, pretty much every day, it's like you open a shop, you're gonna sell stuff.
No, Antonio,
No, I
sorry.
think we lost the connection again.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, but
sorry.
now we can see also you clearly. So
I think we lost when you said about like what entitles like the sales and trading job, and then we lost the
Okay.
connection there.
Should I start from
yes,
there?
you could repeat. Yeah, now we hear you clearly. So if you could repeat that part, we
Yeah,
were very interested.
yeah, for sure. So, very high level, a sales or a trading role in a bank is comparable to selling anything through a retail shop. Obviously, different products, but what I mean by that is that every day you open the shop, you contact your clients or your clients contact you, and you sell some stuff, which in my case, it was like forward contracts, future contracts, options, stuff like that. And then by the end of the day, usually when the markets close or where trading activity slows down around 5 p.m., the day is pretty much done. And the day after, you start again from scratch and you do the same thing. So there is not really a lot of working on like long-term projects or, like there's not a ton of, at least in my experience, other skills besides just like selling. And I wanted to try something different, something more like working on projects, working on, with a team, on and stuff like that. So I interviewed with Amazon. I got this role, and I joined this completely different team that did vendor management, and it was a lot of fun. Amazon was still very new in Milan. Everybody was super young. Everybody allowed you to take a lot of risk, which was in very big contrast from HSBC. HSBC is very hierarchical. So it was a great opportunity to really step up, take ownership, and grow a lot. And I only spent a few months there. I only spent 6 months there. So it was very brief. But like, if I think about it, 6 months, it feels like I spent years there just because of the intensity of the work.
Like a
Yeah.
project that you remember that you did there in Amazon. If you can
So the thing that I remember the most that was like a lot of fun was working on the Black Friday deals, which is obviously huge for Amazon. And I was in the electronics division. So we were preparing months in advance. We started preparing the deals. So started negotiating the deals with the vendors, like the electronic brands, and secured the funding. And then when at midnight we went live, we were all at the office and we were watching like live the sales tracker as the sales were coming in. So that was very exciting. I think that's the most memorable thing that I can recall.
Yeah, and like given that you've been only relatively like 6 months in Amazon, then you flew to San Francisco to the other part of the world, and you started working at JP Morgan. So again in the banking sector. How was this shift? Like, why did you decide to come back to that sector? But obviously with competencies that you've gained from Amazon. So how was that experience different from the previous one that you had in the banking sector? And did the experience at Amazon give you something more that you applied in JP Morgan?
Yeah, so this is a big transition, going from Milan to San Francisco. So maybe it's probably helpful if I give a little bit of background of how I got to the US in the first place.
Yes, and also a very important aspect about the visa. So how do you
yes.
manage to starting working there, and how does it work? Because that's very
Yeah.
really important. Okay.
So as I was working at Amazon, still in Milan, I got married to an American woman, so American citizen. Through that, I got the US green card, which is basically, it's not a passport, but it's something that allows you to live in the United States. So it basically gives you a visa to live in the United States, which is not tied to any specific work or anything like that. You
So
can
you can
just
stay
come
there
to the
for
United
as long
States.
as you want.
Sorry, say that again.
So you can stay there for as long as you want. Also, if you maybe
Yeah.
stop working, you can. Okay.
You need to renew it every few years, but it's pretty easy to renew it compared to other types of visa. And
Okay,
and
so
so sorry, go ahead.
no, continue saying so like
Yeah, so once I got that, after a few months, it was early 2018, we decided to move to California, to the United States. And we basically made this big jump. We quit our jobs in Milan and we said, okay, let's go to the US. Let's start recruiting once we get there, and go from there and see how it goes. So as soon as I got here, I started really applying to jobs like crazy, probably hundreds, if not thousands of jobs. And it was not easy, especially for me as an Italian who studied in Italy in schools that are not famous in the US. Like surprisingly, Bocconi is not famous in the US. Some people know it, but not many. So it was definitely an obstacle to get a job. But through the way I approached it was I went on LinkedIn and I tried to reach out to people and just like to get a referral at companies. So my approach was reach out to people that have something in common with you. Maybe they are Italian or something else, and ask for a referral. And I got some referrals. I was pretty lucky. I got some interviews. Most of them didn't move forward. But then I got this interview that I really didn't take too seriously with JP Morgan. I thought there's no way I'm gonna get it. And then I got it. I remember I was on the plane flying back after an interview, and the recruiter called me and said, "We'd like to offer you this job." So that was like one of the happiest moments for me in my
Yeah, we
life.
can imagine.
I think that you're not saying to us something because it's not possible that for two also with the other with HSBC you said my interview was not going well and then you get it with JP Morgan. I didn't do this good.
Yeah, I think one thing that you will realize as you start interviewing, sometimes you think the interview went really well, and then you get a no, and then sometimes you think I didn't do my best, but for some reason they like you, and so
Yeah, and
you never know.
how do you think people evaluate this sort of interviews? Because everyone has their own perceptions on interviews, but have you discovered some specific skills or some specific ways of making interviews that you believe are the more effective?
I think what you need to do is try to go as prepared as you can to the interview. So do research on the company as much as you can. Do research on the interviewers. Look at their background, similar to what you did with me. So look at their background and try to come up with also questions that you can ask them, or also try to see if you can find through reading their background, see if you can find any potential interest that you have in common with them, and then you bring it up during the interview, and that can create some connection. So that may help you stand out.
Okay.
Okay, so like also with the person that will interview you, maybe it's important to do some research on.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, there is a anecdote about that JP Morgan interview. Yes, so the head of the team, her last name was Modugno, so Italian last name, but she's American, and so I started asking like, "Hey, are you originally from Italy?" So we connected on that, like very small thing, but we connected on that. I think she liked that, and
And what
maybe
was
that
like
helped.
your role there at JP Morgan?
What was
Like
my
what did you
role?
uh-huh.
I was in the corporate bank, which basically, if you think about JP Morgan, you can divide. There is on one side corporate bank, and on the other side investment bank. So investment bank is like M&A, trading, stuff like that, and then the corporate bank is more like other types of banking services, such as loans, short-term investments, bank accounts, stuff like that. More boring, I would say, banking products, but still
And why did you
pretty
decide
valuable.
to go there? Why did you decide that sector? Only because was that the opportunity, or because like you could actually like choose the sector in which start working?
I would say number one, because that's the opportunity that I got, but also compared to the investment bank, corporate banking is generally a little bit less intense in terms of working hours. So I think that's probably a little bit more sustainable in the long term. You don't work like 100 hours a week. You work more like normal. You still work a lot, but not like crazy hours.
And like coming back working at a bank after your experience at Amazon, you reevaluated like the experience in bank or not? Like you liked that or
Yeah, so to some extent, it was it was a better experience than HSBC because there is a cultural difference between Italy and the US, where in Italy, at the bank, it was still very old school mentality where the intern was like in charge of buying lunch for everybody and stuff like that. So they didn't treat you with a lot of respect. But then at JP Morgan, it was completely different. People, even like young people, were treated with a lot of respect. They were allowed to go meet clients, present in front of clients and client meetings. So like get a good amount of visibility and experience. So on that level, I definitely enjoyed that experience, and I learned a lot. But I still felt like I wanted to try something more hands-on, like in a company. And working at JP Morgan, most of my clients were technology companies. So I got to experience that world, and that led to my next transition at
Exactly.
Postmates.
Exactly. Then you went to Postmates, which is another company, and there you work as treasury analyst. So always in this analytical sector, and also that experience. Why did you choose that company, and what made you entering there too?
Yeah, so Postmates was a food delivery company, similar to Uber Eats or Globo. It was not like one of my clients. It was just like a kind of like hot tech company at the time, I would say. And coming from banking, the roles that really I could do in a tech company were finance related roles. So treasury, strategic finance, maybe corporate development, stuff like that. So I felt like I had a pretty strong fit for the treasury team, and so I went for that, and I spent there about a year and a half until the company got acquired. Uh, and during that time, it was a lot of fun because the company was still fairly small, like 1,000 employees, so fairly small compared to like JP Morgan, hundreds of thousands of employees. And when you are in a small company, you can get to do a lot of different things. So if, for example, my job title was treasury analyst, meaning I was in charge of like treasury, so liquidity management, investments, debt, stuff like that. But then since the company is so small and it's growing fast, if you desire doing more stuff, you can. So you can collaborate with other teams, and you can say, hey, I would like to help you on this project. And so you get to do a lot of different things and gain a lot of experience.
So it was like a startup like environment, like compared to the previous experiences that you had. But
Yes.
also that, in fact, maybe from this experience, we can arrive to the startup that you co-founded, Pecunia, and yeah, we were very interested about how that idea came up to mind, and what made you decide, okay, I start this startup, given that all the experiences that you had and the work that you were doing. Yes, tell us about the journey, and also how did you take the fundings and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't call it like a real startup. It's more like a side project. I did this with a friend of mine from college who lives in Finland now. We started during COVID, where being always in at home with the lockdown, we had some free time and we wanted to do something because we got a lot of inbound messages from friends always asking, hey, what's a good bank account to open, or what's a good trading platform, or finance related, basic personal finance related questions like that. And so we thought maybe we should create a platform or like a blog or something like that where we can write about these topics. We did some Google search and we realized that online there are not many reputable sources for personal finance in Italian. Most of them are always trying to sell you something. So they say, For example, I don't know, this brokerage account is the best, but really they're just saying that because they get a commission if you open an account with that firm. And so we wanted to be as transparent as possible. We started these, and we worked on it for a couple of years. We also created a tool to compare different accounts. But then we got busy, so we kind of paused. For the last year or so, we haven't really moved forward with the project.
But did
Because
you
Yeah.
did you do a pre-seed round or something, or
No,
was
no,
it
no.
was
It's
a
just
project?
a very simple website, so it
Okay.
didn't require any funding. Well, the only funding that's very minimal is like just the web hosting, and so it's like not much at all.
Okay.
but in the meantime, you were working at Postmates, also if it was during COVID or no?
I was working full time. I was already at Uber, I think, at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, this was
And
just like
how,
a
in
side
fact,
gig.
we want to like to arrive now that about maybe if you want to talk about the transition, how like you arrived there at Uber, what
Hmm.
maybe the opportunity that you
Because now you're
take.
still working there, so like from 2021 up to now. So also about how was Uber before and how is it now, also given the extremely explosion of artificial intelligence and how it is integrated in your work, and if it is impacting also your work.
Yeah. So I was at Postmates, like I said, and then COVID started early 2020, which was terrible, but also very good for the food delivery business. And Postmates, being in food delivery, benefited a lot by the explosion in food delivery orders overnight. And so the company grew a lot. And then Uber wanted to expand its food delivery business. They already had Uber Eats, but they wanted to grow faster. So they made an offer to acquire Postmates. And then I think early 2021, that's when the acquisition closed. And I myself, but most of the Postmates employees moved over to Uber. So we became Uber employees. So that's how I got there. And coming from the treasury team at Postmates, there was a natural transition to go into the treasury team at Uber. So I joined that team and I stayed there for about a year and a half. And then I switched team about 2.5 years ago to join the strategic finance team, which is where I am now.
Okay, and so what about like the artificial intelligence? Like, are you using it in your job or work, or how it entered in what you're doing, since before wasn't so developed as now, obviously.
Yeah.
So how do you integrate that?
So in my role, I use it to some extent. For example, I do a lot of analytics using SQL, and it's something that I learned over the past couple of years. But now we have, well, first of all, we have ChatGPT, which we can use, and you can kind of ask, hey, how would you write these in SQL to get these result? So you can do that. But Uber has also developed its internal ChatGPT specifically for writing SQL queries. And so that's really helpful, especially if you're not very proficient with analytics skills. So we have those tools, and they are really growing like really fast. I would say in the last 6 months, 6 months ago we didn't have any of that, and now there is a lot already.
And are you doing like now that you are a strategic, like you work with the strategic finance at Uber, how are the challenges maybe also nowadays that you face more in your daily routine, given that it's a very expanded company and has to cover lots of also geographical areas? How do you manage to do that? Or if you can tell us an episode in which you had to solve a problem that occurred in this sector.
Yeah, the company is big. It's really big, and we have about 40 or 50,000 employees. So it's very different than Postmates. And as you said, we are in all over the world. So there are different finance teams covering different geographic regions. I am responsible for the US business. So I only focus on that. And I think a challenge, like a challenge of being such a global business is, like in the past year, I've been working on changing the definition of one of our key metrics that the business reports on. And it's challenging to get everybody aligned from all over the world and all different teams like finance, product, engineering, and so on, because everybody has slightly different incentives and interests. And so when you become such a big company, it's hard to get everybody aligned.
And like, what are the most exciting project that you worked on in all these years that you worked there at Uber?
For me, one of the most exciting things has been just working on launching self-driving cars. So just like working on that piece, being a small piece in this very big project where Uber has launched self-driving cars in partnership with Waymo in 2 cities in the United States already, and that's going to grow over time. So I think that's a very, very exciting new technology.
So, like, if now a young person wanted to do an experience at Uber, in which sector or in which subject do you think they could focus more on, given nowadays challenges and happenings? Also, from your point of view.
I think it depends on what you're studying. Like if you are a student like you in more like business, economics related subjects, I would say that probably finance is a good fit, but not just finance. You can also look at something like strategy or operations. And Uber has a very big presence in Amsterdam. We have a very big office there. There is a lot of Italian people there, and it's a really good company. If you are like an engineering student, there's probably also a ton of opportunities as well, but I'm less familiar with that.
Yeah. And where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? Are you seeing yourself also there at Uber, or maybe do you have other dreams that you want to pursue? Maybe creating your own startup, or continue developing and escalating in this industry in which you are now.
Yeah, I ask myself that question almost every day. I don't know. I think Uber is a cool company, and what makes me excited about it is there is this transition to self-driving cars, which is just at the beginning, and you really only see the potential if you can see it with your own eyes. Like here in San Francisco, we are very lucky because we see self-driving cars every 30 seconds when you are in the street. But if you are like in Italy, you've never seen it, so you don't know that there is that new technology. So I think over the next 5 to 10 years, that technology is going to go all over the world. So that makes me excited about
Yeah, but
Uber.
do you think that it's possible that in Italy is gonna arrive also self-driving cars? Because I was talking about this topic with my professor like last week, because he didn't know that that at San Francisco there were self-driving cars, and he told me like they are using there also Uber, and he said no, but it's not possible that it's gonna work here in Italy because there are policies about taxes, about here that we have taxes, so
Hmm.
like the people that drive cars, so lots of people they're gonna lose their jobs.
Yeah,
So I was thinking,
it's a very sensitive topic because there is going to be a lot of people that will lose their jobs for sure. So I think in countries like Italy, it may take a little bit longer because there is a lot of like regulation. But I think eventually it will get there. It's going to take years, maybe 5 to 10 years, but I think
Yeah, but
eventually we'll get there.
and you're talking about this topic like in Uber, the firm is saying that they want to expand all over the world, or not.
Yeah,
like,
for
in which
sure.
phase are you right now about the development of the product? If it's still, if it is ready for the also the expansion to other geographical areas, or it will still take time?
It's going to take time. I think Europe is going to be one of the last places because of all the regulation that there is in Europe. But if you look at United States, China, self-driving cars are already there, very widespread. So it's going to take some time, but eventually you will see that as this technology becomes very safe, fewer people will die on the road compared to what happens today. Moving around is going to become much cheaper. So like if you're paying $10 for a taxi, then maybe you're going to pay only $5 with self-driving cars. And it's true that there's going to be some job loss from like taxi drivers. But I think that's going to take many years to happen. And that happens anytime there is a new technology. There is always a transition phase. So I think that's inevitable. We probably shouldn't just stop the technology just because of fear of job loss.
Exactly. I was going to say that in every technological innovations, there are jobs that are going to be lost, but other new jobs are going to be created. So,
Yeah.
as you said, we don't have to think a lot about only the negative part, because yes. And we wanted to like end with some quick fire questions. Now we're going to give you some statements, and you have to answer with your immediate thoughts. Like, are you okay? Are you ready?
I'll try.
What's a belief like that you hold strongly, but that most people around you disagree, or that you fight about sometimes? Yes, or in your daily life, or also in your private life.
Oh, that's a difficult question. I don't know. Waking up early.
That's a thing that
Yeah, that's one thing that my wife doesn't agree with me on.
okay. So you don't have like a belief that you believe really strongly, but like other people maybe do not agree with you,
Have your point of view.
Um,
or maybe at work if you have something that you firmly believe, but like and you have to convince someone of your idea because maybe that person actually doesn't really understand what you're saying.
um, I don't know. I think maybe I try to. My personality is a little bit less extrovert. So when I'm trying to support a point of view, I try to make it more backed by facts and data than by a beautiful story. And here in the US, there is it's really important to be a really good storyteller. So that's one thing that sometimes I struggle with and I disagree with some people.
Your personal facts, so
Yeah.
that's what brings you.
And do you think that financial success guarantees fulfillment? Like that makes you alive, or if there's something else that makes you alive rather than financial success?
Yeah, no, I don't think it guarantees fulfillment for sure. No, absolutely not. There are a lot of people that are financially successful and still not happy. But I think it's a component to be fulfilled and happy. If you don't have financial stability, it's more likely that you have family problems or the stress. So it's a component, I think.
Yes, and have you any perspective that's in which you have changed opinion in the last few years, like something that you believed before and now you have a completely different perception of a thing or an experience?
Yeah, I would say when I first moved to the United States, I was very much a little bit more close-minded. Like I always thought, oh, living in Italy is better. In Italy, we do everything better, stuff like that. I couldn't appreciate the differences here. But then over time, I've learned to be more open-minded and seeing the differences, but also like just not in a negative way, just like seeing the pros and cons. And I think what helped me is I met many different people here from many different countries. So just get to know all the different people has been helpful.
But so I didn't understand. Like initially, you said that you moved to the US, so, like you quit your job, but initially you didn't like your life there. Like you said, Italy was better. So why, like you decided this transition?
No, I've always been adventurous, and so that's why I came to the US. But I always thought that Italy was better, and
Okay.
I always thought Italy's better. I'm gonna stay 2 years, maybe 3 years in the US, and then go back. So I wasn't really open-minded, completely open-minded. And then when I started being more open-minded, I started realizing that there are many beautiful things here that maybe we don't have in Italy, and so maybe I can stay here longer. I don't need to really always live here, but wish I was in Italy, you know. So right
But
now I'm completely enjoying where I am with no regrets.
yeah, but would you change anything of your path, like anything, or if you could redo that again, would you redo your journey as you
The
did
same.
the same, or would you do something different with the?
Um, I would say, well, it's probably I would change some things, but many times the mistakes you make them because you don't know better. So, like I said, when I was in high school, I was not a good student. I didn't have many good mentors, and that probably set me on a slower path to career, to when I to kind of my career development. So, if I could go back, maybe I would try to have a little bit more mentors early on. But that's not always easy, as you guys know, especially in Italy, and especially in where I am from. There's not a good examples of people that have been successful. So that's unfortunate. But I think what you're doing with this podcast can be helpful for people that listen and maybe want to learn more about what's out there.
In fact,
Exactly.
like to conclude, a piece of advice that you want to give to our listeners.
Young people that want to do something and actually they're trying to find the right path.
I think what's very, very valuable is regardless of where you are, if you're high school or college or early career, and you have an objective, or maybe you're not sure what your objective is, try to reach out to people in your network, or even people outside of your network that you can find online, and just have a chat. Try to learn about their path and ask for some advice. And if you do this many times, I think in your mind you will get a more clear idea of what the path is going to be to get to where you want to get.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
very
you so
much. And
much.
in fact, like
Really,
maybe if our listeners want to reach you out, where they can maybe write to you if they can.
Yeah, you can reach out on LinkedIn.
Okay.
and
Yeah,
if you
I
have any
guess.
resources, yeah, if you have any resources or maybe a book that have changed your life or give you some inspiration, like for your career or in general for
Um,
something
What do you
that
think that is
interested you,
valuable?
exactly.
yeah, one book that I really liked. It's a bit it's pretty famous. It's called um, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Mm,
You may have heard
okay.
about it. It's the author is Dale Carnegie. So it's a pretty
Perfect.
good book. It's about how to deal with people. You know how to, like the title says, how to be friends with them, how to earn their trust, and that's gonna help you throughout your life.
Yeah, of course, that is fundamental to have trust in others,
Yes.
and that others have trust in you.
About human
Yeah,
interaction, actually, I
Mm.
believe.
Really,
Really,
exactly.
Antonio, thank you very much. It was
was
a
really
really great
enriching.
conversation,
Yes,
and
I believe that really lots of people will be inspired about your journey, and
mm,
we'll try to know more about what this world can offer. So, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us.
and
Yeah,
good
thank you
luck
for
with
having me.
everything that will come up to you. Really, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Alessandra. Thank you, Rora.
Bye bye.
Bye,
Bye,
Eric.
Eric. Thank you.